Yeah, so what I wanted to
Okay.
show was what does the risk look like in detail. So this is what the
Yeah.
risk managers who are watching this are going to be caring about. They're going to want to just check, oh, all those things that I've seen in my current ERM GRC database, do we still have those in Safran Risk Manager or not? And also for those that are just using spreadsheets, they're just going to work. We haven't seen what does a risk look like except on a risk register so far. So this is the risk register view when you've got many more of the columns enabled, when you're not looking and filtering your view as like the bow tie view that I had earlier. We've got IDs, risk IDs, alternative risk IDs. You've got so many different IDs because sometimes this stuff is useful. Sometimes you have a customer who has a risk database that's separate from your database, so your ID has to match with someone else's ID for the equivalent risks in a different system, something like that. So this is why you might choose to hide some of these columns, but they exist just in case you need to use them, right? Got lots more pills, got bow ties that are more fleshed out. We've got a little action icon there, which you can see. Have a look at that in a bit more detail in a moment. So yeah, a whole bunch of stuff in there. And then as I mentioned, you can have queued up some risks to review over here. So I've got my basic risk identification. What's the title? What's the description? Who owns it? Now I'm saying the construction director owns it, but this could be Dave, a named individual, Ellie the engineer, Dave the director, whatever. Risk event dates, end dates. So this is relating back to the triggering and things. When can it hurt us? Is it a threat or an opportunity? Any extra notes? Is it low or high priority? So if you want to be very crude about focusing your attention and just guarantee that you're only looking at certain things, there's just an extra little filter there. Relationships, what does so this is where you put in the different alternative IDs, but also source risk and target risk. Does this risk potentially lead to another risk?
Okay.
Are there domino chains? If one risk goes, the next one is more likely to go. That so you can start sort of inviting relationships and webbing together a bigger picture. All correlations, though, are not done in this tool. They're done in Safran Risk. So correlations might be something we come back to one day if we need to. But to keep things simple, people don't want to talk about correlations in their day-to-day project management. That can be quite an in-depth and sometimes, well, it's a rabbit hole. Let's just say that. Categorizations, so we've already touched on this. You've seen these things in the dashboard now, like there's my key date 1 and which phase are we impacting, what functions impacting, or where's it coming from, which breakdown structure do we credit, custom fields that you can add, which we saw in the administration section. So some freehand text that we can put in here. This is all custom because you can. You don't have to, but you can. Treatment strategies, so all the familiar things hopefully you're seeing if you've ever used a kind of ERM type database before. And that's just the risk identification section. So if we scroll down now to the risk assessment and expand that, this is the bow tie, multiple causation factors or triggers, different probabilities assigned to each of those, and then on the other side different kinds of impacts. We've got dollar impact, we've got health and safety impact, we've got dollar impact. So these dollar impacts could be, one could be for like the indirect cost of additional time taken, prolongation. There's an overhead that is stretched for a longer period of time that wasn't supposed to be there, whereas a direct cost might be we need extra bricks as those bricks have gone missing, someone stole them, so there's an extra direct cost. So there might be different ways of articulating different types or categories of impact and being very precise about it. And then, as you can see with the action icon, you can then map particular actions with different owners to different pieces. So you might have someone from the customer organization overseeing the mitigation of something, whereas someone from the subcontracting organization mitigating one of the causation factors, and building a picture that shows how we as a team are managing this risk really well in the detail. It's clear, it's quite concise. So to just take a look at this one here, so major mobilization and demobilization. Okay, so we've got a description of the source or where this risk is coming from. We've then got a probability of occurrence here. So they've chosen not to use the slider bar, and they've overruled with the NA, which enables you to write in any probability you wish. If you use the slider bar, it's going to use the PID scoring matrix as the definition for what is a rare is a 1%. Is it possible? That's 50%. Is it this one is 100%? So your scoring systems can be different things. This project's been set up with do you remember I said actually I'd like to see things as what's rare, what's possible, and what's greater than 50% more than likely to occur. So
Yeah.
you know, I've set up a really simple 3x3 scoring system. I think for this project is what's happened.
Right.
But you can NA that and just say no, it's not. It's going to be exactly 8% because that's just what my team tell me, or this is what the data is suggesting that it is going to be. You know, you might have historic evidence that says, well, look, this thing happens 8 times out of every 100 projects. You know, justify it. Anyway, what's very important is that you can see we've got the slider bar for pre-mitigated and then post-mitigated, which implies that you can undertake an action in between those two steps that justify any reduction. So if I attempted to save this where the post likelihood was 10%, or if it was lower, like 7%, it shouldn't let me save it if this is empty, if there was no action. So it's like a workflow data validation step taking place to prevent poor quality data. So that's what we're trying to do. Get in the tool for as low minimal time as possible, doing the right things, being consistent. So that helps with that. Okay, so that's your pre and your post and justifying how you're getting from one to the other. The actual action itself looks like this. What's the title? What's the description? Who owns it? Who's actually going to implement that thing? What style of mitigation is it? Because treat, terminate, transfer, tolerate, all those kind of the 4 T's might be something you want to put in here. It's all customizable, right? So you choose what you want to see in these things. What status? Is it underway? Are we waiting to do it? Have we done it? Is it archived, as in rejected? I think that means. Which parts of the bow tie does this action help with? So it might be that this action can mitigate the probabilities and reduce the probabilities of occurrence on multiple parts of the bow tie, not just one. So to save you rewriting the action 5 times over, if it genuinely helps with all 5 of these, then just map it to all 5. So you don't have to rewrite it. It's a time-saving device, right? It's possible to also link to the other side of the bow tie on the impacts, but in this case, I'm not doing that. When are we planning to start the action, complete the action? When did we actually do it? You know, it's good to kind of have those things if it's possible to encourage the team to give you that information. But you know, for those that are beginning, just the mandatory stuff with the red stars, you know, where you're planning to start is probably the most important thing, because then we can measure whether you are or aren't. And then there's extra space down here to do a bit more in terms of describing things for those organizations that are more mature with it and want to do more with it. So that's what the actions look like currently. I believe they're introducing controls as a distinctly different type of action. So there'll be a new symbol. At the moment, we just have like this shield. I think it's going to be like a kind of like a rudder control on a ship as the next icon that's coming in development at the moment. So controls being those things that you are expected to do. Like, I don't care that you only joined the company 10 minutes ago. This is how we do business here. This control is how we mitigate that thing, right? It's expected.
Right.
So we can audit you against those things. Whereas I see mitigation actions as those things that go over and above the control environment, which is how can we potentially spend more effort, more money, more time, more resource on improving the odds of delivering this project successfully. So that's coming, that distinction is coming in the next major update, I believe. so probably towards the end of this year, towards the end of 2024. We're already sort of halfway through that year now, of course, so a few months away yet, I think, before we start to see that. But yeah, so control environment as well as this mitigation measures, and you can map those to either side. If we look at an impact, this is a qualitative impact, so it's marginal, material, maximum kind of impact. So again, my 3x3 scoring system, but we're not looking at probabilities now. And this is a qualitative impact. It's a health and safety impact tag, and it impacts a particular function. What are you going to do to mitigate it, if anything? You want to add a new action, just click this button here, bosh. Now you've got a clean form to draft. And then the post-mitigated position, again, justifying, hopefully, going from, say, a maximum impact to a material impact. If I hit save, it shouldn't let me. Action is mandatory. So you need to put in an action. But let me do it, okay? There are some extra bells and whistles behind here that starts to look at just individually, uniquely on this particular impact. There's a Monte Carlo potential output to be shown here. I think in this case, it must be taking a qualitative, mapping it to the equivalent financial value. I'm not 100% sure that actually feeds through to the main Monte Carlo, but what it definitely does do is it helps you move on the PID matrix an equivalence value. So when you change your perspective and it's a qualitative impact only on health and safety, it helps you move the disk that was on the matrix into one cell or another.
Right.
That's how it's being used. But you can provide a basis of estimate or impact notes to justify why do you think this is a medium impact, not a high impact, or why do you think it's precisely 17 days impact with a plus or minus number of days on that. You can provide some justifications and things there. And then these relate back to a feature in Safran Risk as well, to help you with your superior or more advanced modeling. And then once you've done all those things,